Hi guys, welcome back to Contest Prep University. I'm here with Dr. Corey Probst, and today is going to be a great episode. We're going to talk about how to face your fears, which I wanted to get ahead of the game before we talked about this today on Monday. So on my team Zoom call, I actually wanted to talk to my clients about what some of their fears were. And I was amazed with how close I am to my clients, how few people said anything. It was like crickets. And not a lot of people were really open to talk about it. So that lets me know people are kind of in a vulnerable spot and they're also shy. Some people are afraid of like their fears getting used against them. So I just kind of wanted to lead with that initially, that this is a great topic because it seems to be one that is hard for people to talk about.
Yeah, I agree with you, Adam. And everyone is going to, there are going to be a lot of similarities in terms of the way in which, as humans, we react to fear. We become typically very protective, and many of us will become very insular. And when we don't have enough facts, which is really interesting in like the current situation, because there's lots of unknowns and lots of uncertainty, and lots of people are giving us very different information about what the facts are. And so we're like, what do we believe? In situations like that too, Adam, we see that like prejudice actually rises. So we see these in-group, out-group sort of things happening within our environment. And what that means is we shut other people out and we stick with our tribe.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like it would be interesting for me to know if you see like more interaction within your group. And that could mean different things. It could mean they're participating less in other groups because they feel a lot safer and protected within your group. But yeah, it's, what fear does is it brings out our patterns of behavior. And those patterns of behavior are often developed in childhood. From the time that we were born till where we are right now, we've been learning how to deal with discomfort. And some of us will start over functioning and some of us will start under functioning. And we can explain what that looks like for each of those two groups. But, for your group in particular, I would be interested in hearing like, what questions did you ask them specifically, or if it was a blanket sort of, what do you fear? Because that, for me, that would be hard to answer. It would.
Yeah. For me, I kind of led into it with the current situation. Do you guys have any fears that you want to discuss, or just any fears in general that, pester you on a day-to-day basis, or maybe even a monthly basis? I was hoping to get something, big out of somebody, and it really was like crickets. But I thought someone would at least say flying or something simple, because we'll often get that. Usually a few times a year, I'll have a client who just says, you know what, I don't want to travel. And that's really important to me because I don't fly. And it makes me sad because I think, well, that avoidance can really make them miss out on a lot in their life.
Yeah, I wonder if it would have been different, and if you would have received more responses if you'd changed the language, which is another interesting conversation. If you had said, what are you guys worried about right now? Anyone experiencing anxiety around something? Let's talk about where we're feeling anxious. It seems to me like that's the more common language that we use when we're experiencing discomfort instead of fear. But those anxiety and worry stop us, just like fear does. It makes us kind of dig in. I say that, but at the same time, some people, they don't become very rigid. For some people, they begin to act very chaotic. and you might see some like behaviors that we might label as irresponsible, and they become more followers and they want other people to tell them what to do because that feels safer to them, versus, you know, others who, when there's fear, anxiety, or discomfort, uncertainty, they become the leaders. They become the ones who take control. They start taking over. They start delegating. They start saying, here's what needs to be done and here's how we're going to do it. Again, though, these are patterns of behavior that have really always been there for them. We tend to be either chaotic or rigid in times of uncertainty. And because this is a vulnerable time and we're trying to protect and feel safe and secure, those patterns are going to become more amplified.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
And now's a great time to talk about fear with this virus, because whether you fear the consequences or repercussions of everything we're going through right now, we're forced to experience this. I mean, it is here, it's in our backyard. And for me, to be quite honest, when everything started shutting down, I got very nervous about my business. But I will say, as I've experienced this for a couple weeks, I'm like, this isn't great, but it's not that bad. I'm getting through it. And, you know, it's nothing I would want to experience, but I seem to be experiencing this okay, better than my own logic would have presented to me initially. So sometimes you just have to float on those waves and just try to not kick and scream the whole time. Really talk to yourself and ask yourself questions and really give yourself a reality check on how is this going right now.
Well, I think you make a good point, Adam. There's that image that you just created of surfing the waves. Like there are, and this holds true for just life in general, but there are going to be the ups and downs and the high points and the low points. Right now, what's different is the lows are a lot lower than we're used to experiencing. And my fear is that that's going to last for a while. Like the low is going to be much, much lower than we're used to for a much longer period of time.
Right.
To your point, I could get really swept up in that fear and the emotion that goes along with it. The fear is actually like, we can look at it in two ways. The thought that I just had that this is going to be the shit for a really, really long time, and there's going to be a lot of suffering and a lot of people dying and a lot of people not able to hold work and a lot of people losing their businesses. You know, I could really get swept up in all of those thoughts. And then they create that significant, like I can feel myself like tightening up just talking about it, right? There's the actual bodily sensations of that anxiety and that worry.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to say, like, okay, right here, right now, just like you said, you're finding I'm okay. You're not okay, but you're okay at the same time. Right here, right now, I'm safe. Right here, right now, I'm in this conversation with you. You know, we're present together. We're helping provide valuable information to people. Right here, right now, we're okay. So there's there's a toggling that happens. Just like the waves up and down, there's a back and forth between, okay, I'm feeling myself getting swept away by all of these thoughts and worries and anxieties, and I can come back right here and feel grounded, if even for just a small period of time. It's this, it's like a volley back and forth. And it kind of reminds me, Adam, like there's two things I want to say about this. One, the longer we endure this, the more chronic that sense of fear can become, and it can really weigh on us, like chronic stress can. We see the toll that chronic stress takes on a body, on a mind. You know, it sets us up for disease and compromises our immunity. The same things we're dealing with now can happen. The second thing I want to say is this reminds me, because I'm seeing people be fearful. I'm seeing people be in denial. I've seen people be angry. And I've been in all of these phases too. I've seen bargaining. I've seen depression. And I've seen, like you just described, there's an element of acceptance. Like, this is not ideal. I do not like this. I wouldn't wish this upon us again, ever, let alone in the near future. And yet, here we are. And I'm going to do what I can right here, right now. All of these different ways of being, Adam, are the stages of death and dying, or the stages of grief.
Yeah, and this is why it's such a deep topic. And another excellent thing that I was kind of thinking about as we were talking, fear can be used as a protective mechanism, absolutely. But it can also really rob you of experiencing some amazing things. And the more people avoid these things, that comfort becomes addicting. Yeah. And it's really, and we'll probably get into this soon, it's really a matter of facing your fear, which isn't always meaning you have to do them, but just kind of like you taught me through your mentorship with me, is listing things 1 through 10 on risk versus reward. And that is huge. And, you know, this one's been more difficult with the COVID-19 outbreak for certain. But recently, I actually went snorkeling, and I actually did in November in Bermuda. But I was scared as heck to go for a couple different reasons.
Yeah, so I want to hear them, Adam. I want to hear what was creating the fear for you.
Yeah, I'll be super vulnerable right now. So when I went on this trip, it was actually for a bodybuilding show. My wife, we actually couldn't have our dog sitter, so she had to stay home. So I went on this bodybuilding trip / vacation that we'd planned by myself, which I hate going anywhere alone. So this was after the show, like kind of my last 2 days. I was like, I really imagined myself snorkeling, hopefully. But a few reasons. So 1, being alone. 2, I was around a lot of bodybuilders, and I was just definitely rocking my off-season body. And so the resort was full of these people. So maybe the fear of judgment.
Okay, stop right there. There, you nailed it. You drilled down. It wasn't the fear of being among bodybuilders. Like, you like bodybuilders. You are a bodybuilder. Like, why the fear amongst people who you feel like are your tribe? What's underneath it?
Yeah.
What are you thinking is going to happen?
Well, and that's what I wrote down on my 1 to 10. And that was the one that I struggled with, because I'm not a mean person by any means. And that one went away pretty quickly, and it sounded really adolescent. And it really came down to, well, the worst thing that could happen is someone take a picture of me on social media and post it. And I'd be like, well, yep, I do look like that right now. And that's okay.
So part of this, Adam, it sounds like, was you're drilling down, and then you're asking the question like, okay, well, if that actually happens, say someone judges me, say someone takes a photo, like, okay, then what? If this happens, then fill in the blank. Let's look at, because the other fear, you said you were scared of going alone. How did you what'd you come to when you drilled down on that? What could potentially happen when you go alone?
The alone made me more comfortable because since I was alone, typically not many people were going to see me. So there was that. And also the act of being alone was just kind of like, if anything happened to me, no one would be there to know.
Okay. That would be something that I would be fearful of too.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have wanted to go by myself. Why? What if something happens? Who am I going to rely on? Who is going to help me if I get hurt? The questions, when we drill down into them, we could actually start answering instead of just letting them float out here staring at us like a real threat. Well, what could actually happen? Well, the plane could crash. Okay, if the plane crashes, what could happen? I could die. Okay, if I could die, then there's nothing to worry about.
Right.
I mean, I'm being super morbid right here, right now in this example, but say that I do get hurt. Well, there are going to be 250 other people hurt around me. All right. And what will happen? Well, the authorities will come and medics will be there and they'll take us to the hospital. Like, I don't have to do anything. The emergency response team will come and they'll do it for me. But this is like this is part of the Stoic philosophy. They're like, our fears, many of them are they're really inconsequential. And if we are willing to play them out and ask, okay, what is the worst thing that could happen? We'll see that we'll actually probably most likely be okay. Yeah.
It was really cool because there's even more things that I conquered through this. And I feel like we really touched on a lot of fears. The other thing was no one was in the water at all. And it was cold. And I hate the cold. So that one was pretty easy because I said, once I'm in, I'm going to feel comfortable. It'll be so beautiful. I won't even care about what the temperature is like. And then the last one was really, I think something that was less adolescent was sharks. And when I looked up the amount of shark attacks in Bermuda, there was like 2 in the past maybe 70 years. So,
oh my gosh, Adam. Okay, so this is a great example of how having the facts, the data can quell so many of our anxieties.
Absolutely. And this is why public speaking's tough for people, though, because they can't look into a fact check on, well, how many people have had bad experience public speaking, but you can look up, shark deaths in Bermuda.
You could look up how many people have died after giving a public talk.
You could. And that's actually one of the things I was reading before this podcast actually did say that exactly. and I'm pretty sure the answer was 0.
Pretty sure the answer was 0. The other thing I'm thinking that is super helpful that you alluded to when you talked about getting into the cold water, it's like, okay, it's very short-term discomfort. Once I'm in, I'm fine. It's just like public speaking. This is 15 minutes of my life, or 20 or 30 or however long your event is. But then it's done. Then it's over.
Yeah.
Short-term discomfort. Yeah. And the thing is, though, it doesn't mean that your fear is going to disappear. And this, I think, is a really important piece of it. It doesn't mean that the anxiety is going to disappear or go away or won't be there. I will tell you, every time I stand up in front of an audience to speak, I get nervous. Every time. I've been doing it for quite a while.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kind of in front of an audience right now recording this. People aren't looking at us live, but every time I get a little bit hot, I get a little bit flush, I start talking a little bit faster, and I have to consciously breathe and tell myself it'll be okay. This is half an hour of your life, Corey. Yeah. And the potential benefits of you doing it, far outweigh the costs of you not doing it.
Absolutely.
Adam, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like, I got up this morning and I was thinking, I'm going to cancel that with Adam. Adam and I aren't experts on fear. I'm being super vulnerable right now. Like, I was like, Adam and I can't talk about fear adequately. Like, we're not equipped to do this for people. And then I was like, well, wait a second. We don't have to be fear researchers to talk about what it's like to face fear. I'm a psychologist. He's a coach. We both work with people all the time who are working with their own fear. We have personal experiences, we have professional experiences, and we have enough collective wisdom for this to be beneficial for people. So there was this toggle for me between, no, we shouldn't. Actually, yes, we should. We have valuable information that we can provide for people. So there was this internal, let's face that discomfort, Corey, for the greater good. And that's another point that I think we need to hit on, Adam, is fear typically makes us very self-centered. I want to protect this.
Absolutely.
I want to survive. This needs to survive right here. I don't care about anyone else. And oftentimes we have to shift the focus from being very myopic to the broader expanse, to the other people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much bigger picture thinking.
Yeah, it really is. My very last thing that really made me want to do it, which I actually confirmed with a client that leans on me a lot, funny enough. I said, hey, you know what? They lean on me a lot. I'm going to reach out to them.
Cool.
And I messaged them. I said, I'm really struggling I didn't go into detail, for multiple reasons about going snorkeling. And I said, I really want to do it. I'm having a hard time overcoming a few things, but I said, I just think that I would literally cry if I got on that plane, fly over that ocean, and say that I was not in that beautiful water one time before I leave. And she said, you just need to drop this phone right now and do it. And I thanked her immediately after I got back for that. And I was like, that was kind of the final little push I needed. I needed the accountability of having my fear out there with somebody else, someone I could trust, and just say, hey, can you kind of give me a kick in the butt to make me do it?
Yes, like this is bigger than your fear right now. The opportunity that you are thinking about shoving under the rug and forgetting about is much bigger than the fear.
Absolutely.
And then there was the connection that you got with this person.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge, huge. I talk a lot about, and you probably do too with your clients, Adam, about how kind of stunting deliberation is. The back and forth, the should I, shouldn't I? And oftentimes that is caused by fear. But it can be really detrimental to taking the steps or engaging in the things that could be very helpful or generative in our lives and teach us about ourselves and help us develop confidence and help us enhance our level of competence, like increasing our skills. So, yeah.
It's actually really cool, just the process of me actually doing the snorkeling. Mm-hmm. So I had went down to the dive shop, and the lady who worked there, she actually, I just had to ask how she got that job, of course. And she was from Australia, and she just travels to dive shops around the world. And this is like her life passion. But she said to me, it is really cold, which I'm like, well, thanks for reminding me. I've already written that down on my list. But she said, I'm really glad you're down here because I hope people see you in the water, which brought up my other fear. And she said, I hope more people start diving because of you, because we haven't had anyone dive all week because of the weather. And I thought, well, it might not be the weather. It might be that everyone's spray tanned and they don't want to get their spray tan messed up.
Mm-hmm.
But it was funny how she kind of brought up my fears, but she almost patted me on the back where I'm glad you're doing this because I'm hoping more people do it. It made me think maybe a lot of people were afraid of the same things I was.
Okay, so you're bringing up a whole nother thing that has helped so many navigate fear and anxiety and worry, Adam, which is the understanding of common humanity. So I'm thinking to the time we're currently in right now, and you and I keep saying, and you know, we're talking to this person and they're fearful, and we're talking to this person and they're angry, and we're talking to this person and they have anxiety. Again, fear becomes very myopic and very self-centered to the point where we think we're the only ones who are confronting it. We're the only ones who are facing whatever it is that we're fearing. And if we can expand the lens and understand, and a lot of times that understanding comes through talking to other people and getting and being in connection with other people, we see that we are not alone.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't alone in this, which is ironic because you did this alone, but at the same time you talked to people and you knew that you're not the only person in the world who has been fearful of snorkeling before, or being cold, or doing something by yourself. But that common humanity is really important, and it's actually it's one of the 3 elements of self-compassion. And what we don't typically see with fear sort of reactions is compassion. It's critical, it's critiquing, it's kind of, we act very demanding of ourselves, like, I shouldn't be feeling this way. What is wrong with me that I'm feeling this way? How can I get over this as quickly as possible? Okay, I'm just not going to deal with it. It's just kind of harsh.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like you approached this situation in a much more friendly way with yourself, which is having a level of openness and honesty. You know, you've mentioned vulnerability. Would you agree with that? Was that conscious for you that you approached it that way?
I feel like it was a 3-hour battle of the first hour being me kind of thinking about these things, and then an hour of me laying on the bed, pros and cons, and actually logically thinking. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that was really huge. I think had I continued to walk around the resort and just unorganized in an unorganized fashion, let my thoughts just keep being my thoughts versus actually writing them down to see them, made a huge difference for me.
I think that holds true for most people, Adam. It's, you know, we can only hold so many in our heads at a time to begin with, but when we let the thoughts drive our actions, I mean, they have all the power at that point. When we believe everything that the mind thinks, there is zero room for our truest self, our most authentic self, our values to come out and say, hey, look, okay, maybe some of those are valid. All right. But this is something that's really important to me.
Yeah.
When we write it down, we allow ourselves the ability to have a conversation with it instead of just being led by it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
glad you said that because I probably wouldn't have said it that exact way, but I think it sounds better than how I would have explained it. But absolutely, that's a great way of looking at that.
Yeah. We don't have to believe them. We can have a conversation with them and take them by the hand, literally like they're another person, and be like, okay, let me hear what's going on for you. Now, I want to share with you my side of it as well, and then we can make a decision. It's a much less emotionally driven situation at that point, and it can be more logical.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about, are you familiar with Dan Millman? So,
I feel like I've heard the name. I can't think of any of his current
so
work.
yeah, I can't think of any of his current work either. I've read some of it, and he's a coach. I believe he used to coach gymnastics. He's a mental performance coach though, and has worked with a lot of high level athletes. And he says that our greatest battles are inside. I can relate. You can relate based on this experience. One, he says, to that, one, our thoughts. Two, the value that we put on things and the value we put on the thoughts in our minds. Three, the judgments that we make. And then four, the passions we allow to paralyze us. So you're just what you brought up in terms of kind of being driven by the thoughts and needing to write them down kind of allows you to stop the battle and instead have a conversation. Even if there's some disagreement, you can still have a conversation instead of being blown away
Absolutely.
by or beat up by whatever is there.
For sure. Taking it step by step was huge because in my mind, I would keep going back to things that I had already discussed, like it was brand new again and like I'd never thought about it. Once I wrote it down, it was completely different. I think getting in the water was the last like big final step because all those other fears had been conquered by the time I was standing on the edge of the pier. And then of course I do a shark check and I'm like, looks like the only thing left to face is the cold because the water is super clear there. So you would see a shark a mile away. And I got back from that being one of the best experiences of my life. I even came home and bought diving equipment. I liked it that much. And
Wow.
I have my own equipment to go anytime I'm in Florida or anywhere warm to go snorkeling. And I absolutely will treasure that experience forever. I got back. I thanked the person I reached out to. I said, thank you so much for just giving me that little kick I needed to get out there. I said, I'll never forget doing this.
That's cool, Adam. And I imagine a lot of it was because of the experience itself, being in the water, seeing the aquatic life. I've never done it, so I don't know what it's like. But the quietness, I imagine, and just the peacefulness of it, if you're not being bombarded by all the thoughts about, oh my God, what if a shark eats me?
Yeah.
that experience itself was life-changing, but so was the process that you went through to get to the point where you're in the water and you're actually doing it. It's like all of those things were so impactful for you and created such a profound level of meaning in your life.
Absolutely. It was neat because the whole me not being shredded and being in a swimsuit has followed me ever since my post-competition career. And I think a lot of people probably watching this can relate to that because I get that question very much often. I'll get girls that are out of their season and they already want to diet again. because they're going to the beach. And I'm huge on telling people, please don't change your body to be seen, because every time you go to do something, you're going to feel like you need to look perfect. And me as a coach, that was I really faced that fear. But then the next trip I went on, I went swimming, and it was no big deal. And I feel like facing all those challenges at once really helped me open up my life for other adventures and activities that I enjoy.
And other people, Adam, because what you did, you were modeling a skillful way to live. I have a lot of clients too who worry about the same thing about their bodies. And, you know, I've had those anxieties and worries as well. I mean, I'm retired now. I don't look stage ready by any means. And it's like, are we going to let the anxiety about what was and what we feel like we need to be rob us of the joy that is ours to have? It's like, why would we do that? It's silly.
Right. It really is. And I find that fear really robs people from living. And again, fear can protect you, but it's all about, you know, listing these things and just really calling yourself out if some of it just isn't true or doesn't make logical sense to think that way.
You said something earlier, Adam, that I wanted to come back to. You mentioned it a couple times. You said something about like it felt adolescent to you.
Yeah.
I'll just say this, and then I would love to hear what you meant by that. But I do think that a lot of the fears that pop up in our minds and that stop us from living, like you said, have much to do with old, immature, and experiences that we had when we were younger. We literally can be yanked back in time to when we were much, much younger, to incidents that occurred where we probably were legitimately scared. We were legitimately fearful. And when we're younger, though, we don't have the adult skills that we have now. We don't have the adult minds that we have now. We don't have the adult capacities and support systems that we have now. And so there weren't a lot of things that we could probably do when we were younger except to shut up, don't say anything, avoid it, let go of whatever it was that we wanted to do because we were told it wasn't a good idea. And so if that fear does feel like it's like, and we're stuck and we can't make a decision and it's literally just protect, avoid, act like it doesn't exist, that in many ways can just be like a shadow from our past, where we're doing and we're feeling and we're thinking how we would have when we were 10, for example, versus how we would now at my age of 41. So what did you mean by that? What did you mean when you said adolescent?
Yeah, for me, I think adolescence came back to the judgment quite a bit, because when, you know, I'm on the beach, how many times am I really looking at people or saying, well, that person doesn't look great? And I'm somebody who focuses on people's physique 24/7. And even I let that go when I'm out and about. And I had to think, you know, I bet a lot of people worry about how they look. And I said, I bet that they're so worried about how they look that they're not really worried about me. And that's what made it sound really adolescent to me.
Yeah. Because in adolescence, who are we thinking about?
Yeah.
Ourselves.
Yep.
How do I fit in? How am I going to belong? like, who are going to be my friends? Who's going to like me? What do I have to do in order for them to like me? Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a really, really good insight on your part. It's cool.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think, did we cover everything we wanted to here?
I think so. I think we did. I think
I
we
think
hit on
we
a lot
nailed
of,
it.
yeah, awesome.
Awesome. Well, we'll let you guys go this week, and thank you for joining us. And thank you, Dr. Corey, so much for your time and expertise.
Of course, Adam. I love these conversations with you, and I hope they're really helpful to everyone who listens and watches. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys, and we'll see you next week on another Contest Prep University.